Hey everyone, it's Peppermint time. What do I mean by that? Well, Peppermint OS, of course. So today I'm going to take a look at the new Peppermint OS, which was just released a couple of days ago as of the time of this video. And Peppermint OS is a really well-made OS in my opinion. It is based on Debian 11 Xfce, using the Xfce desktop. That's something that's kind of new as of this year. Peppermint used to be based on Lubuntu, which is an LXDE spin of Ubuntu. In 2022, they decided to change it over to Debian and use the Xfce desktop to make it more reliable, and probably some other reasons that I don't even know about. And to me, that sounds like a pretty good decision because Debian stable is, well, stable. And of course the Xfce desktop is one of my favorite desktops, so I can't wait to take a look at this. I'm going to go ahead and download this. I'm out at the website right now, and all we got to do is go out here and click the download Peppermint button, and then that'll take us right to a link. And here we got our 64-bit, and all I got to do is click here, and this will take us right over to SourceForge, and we can get this baby, and then I can load it in. So I'll be right back in a flash. Okay, I'm booting into the live version now, and wow, there's a whole bunch of stuff there, so I'm going to hit enter, and there we go. Wow. All right, so here's our menu, and I'm just going to go ahead and select the Peppermint OS, the first choice there, and then we should be in to something, the live environment. So here we go, and we ought to be seeing a splash screen here, and there it is. Wow, that's a gorgeous splash screen. I like that. It's got the animation in it with all these little thingies flying by, so that gives a nice sensation of speed flying into that boot up. And our environment's starting to populate, so cool. We'll just see what we got here. So there's a nice welcome screen, and beautiful background just popped in too. Nice. And I'm just going to pop up behind this taskbar here so I'm not covering everything. But here's our gorgeous live environment. Looks really great right off the bat here, with our Xfce environment, welcome screen, and so forth. Really cool, fully featured Peppermint welcome screen here with all kinds of stuff. That's going to be worth looking at here in a little bit once we get all this installed, and then even community links over here, and you can disable it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our installer, and we might as well just get started right on this thing right off the bat. It's a Calamares installer, and really nicely themed. I like the green text there. Awesome. So all the defaults are good with the English and keyboard settings. Erase disk is selected by default, and I'm good with that. So I'm going to let it erase everything on this disk, and I'm just going to select Sleep with Hibernate for a swap. Swap with Hibernate. And then I'm going to hit Next. And now we got a bunch of choices here of things we can install ahead of time during install. So this is cool. I'm going to go ahead, and here we got Xfce for goodies, so I'm going to select that. Always want to have the goodies, I think, in my opinion. Then we have internet apps, so here we can choose from web browsers. So I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to hit that little arrow key and choose from those, because if you check everything, I'm afraid it might check all those browsers. So I'm going to go in here and just select Firefox ESR. And that looks good, but you got a lot of other choices there too. And then I think I'm good there. You also have networking tools, and might as well just take a quick look at that. So yeah, Samba and UFW and so forth, but typically I just really need Firefox, so that's good. And here's our Office suite, LibreOffice. And if you check the box, it'll just check everything. Printing support, you can go in here and select your printer. Like I use HP, but if you have a Canon or any of these other ones, you can select those and it'll install specialized drivers just for your series of printers. So that's cool. And then we got our AV players, audio video. So AV codecs I'm definitely going to want to have here. Then you can take your pick of audio and video players, and I think I'm just going to go down here and select VLC real quick. That's probably one of my favorite overall players anyway. And then here's our video editors. So if I was doing a daily driver install, I'd be installing Kden Live and OBS Studio. Great that you can choose that ahead of time. That's cool. And then down here you got video converters. So I'm going to go with FFmpeg. That's always a nice codec to have. And MKV toolnix is actually pretty cool if you use MKV files a lot, if you mess with those. So that's a great utility there. Used it many times. And then under Graphics Studio, let's go ahead and check GIMP and Inkscape. A lot of nice choices for defaults there too, which is cool. And then graphics, then under utilities, we got archiving applications, disk and USB tools. So a lot of stuff. TimeShift is pretty handy if you want to keep a backup of your config. And then here I'm going to go with Archiver and maybe PZip, P7zip. That's pretty nice utility too. So I'm going to choose that right off the bat. Gparted is another one that I typically install, but if you're not real savvy on how to partition disk, I would probably stay away from it. You might trash all your data. However, for me it works pretty good. So, and then we got Gnome software, and then I'm going to install the two plugins too, Flatpak and Snap, and then KeePass Xfce. That's a great password manager. For a resource monitor, I'm going to go with HTOP. So we'll install that off the bat too. And then under System Applications, Aptitude is a nice package manager wrapper there, which is pretty cool. I would probably check that if I was using that as a daily, just to get some apt extra options. And then System Utilities, nothing there I saw right off the bat I want. But maybe Xfce E4 terminal is good. And wow, cool retro term. Yeah, that looks cool. I'm going to check that. Got to check that out. And then down here, Linux driver module. So if you know your processor, like if you're running an Intel or an AMD, you can go down here and install the firmware for your processor. I use an Intel, so that's the one I would check. And then that would install the firmware for my Intel CPU chipset. So that's nice to know. And then down here, Wine. So if you have Windows apps you want to run on Linux, I would install Wine, and that'll give you a good shot at having those Windows apps working. And then I'm just going to give myself a username. Then we'll just do password. And now we're ready to install. So here's a summary, and I'm good with all that. So I'm going to hit install, and now we're off. And if everything goes okay, it won't start exploding and smoking. It'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and let this install. I'm going to hit pause, and I'll be right back when it's done. All right, we got through that okay. So that didn't take too long, probably about 15 minutes or so. And then I had to walk away and do a couple things. So technically I was gone longer than that, but let it restart, and wow, it worked. That's our Peppermint grub screen there, and you can see it's running 5.10 as the kernel. Nice. So we ought to be seeing a login screen here any second now. And there's our cool splash screen. I really like that Peppermint splash screen. I think that's cool. And loving the color there, the red and the black together. Perfect. And here we are. So we made it. So I'm going to go ahead and log in, and that ought to get us to a desktop. And there's our Peppermint welcome screen again, and that cool background. I'm liking that too. Cool. So this is just kind of getting everything in loaded, and this welcome screen looks really nice. So here we got like apps and web browser and Peppermint Hub and all that, and then we got our panel down here. But let's take a look at what's in our welcome screen first. I'm going to start out with this apps and web browser. And so here we got our apps that have been installed and more that we can install. So see, these are some of the things that were available when we were installing that we didn't choose, and the ones that are grayed out are the things that we selected during install. So if I want to add some more browsers in here, I could go ahead and add Chromium or Falcon or any one of these in here, or one of these utilities like the YouTube downloader or something. So that's cool. It gives you nice, easy access to some of those apps that were available during install. Those are like the preferred apps there. And then here we got our Peppermint Hub again, and we got quick access to different utilities, which is kind of cool. And I'll probably look at these a little closer later. But HBlock, Update Manager, User and Groups, nice. Xfce settings and Xdaily TTK Creator, which I think is a tkinter theme utility or something. Yeah, so that's, if you're a Python programmer, that would probably be pretty handy. I'm not quite sure how, if that would be something someone would use outside of Python app development. Not really sure, so not too familiar with that, but that's kind of cool that it's there anyway. And then here we got some Peppermint utilities, which I'll also take a closer look at a little bit later, but I like that they have these cool custom Peppermint utilities available that you can use to get easy access to stuff. Very nice. So that's the Pep Hub. I'm liking that. So that's very well done. Here's our user settings, so you can get quick, easy access to user settings. You can come over here and change your username if you want. So that's all kind of cool. And then add your users. And so that's kind of a nice, easy utility right there to manage your users. And then back in your hub, there's Xfce settings. So that'll take you to your settings, your system info. And wow, that's cool. That opens up a NeoFetch console. So I like that. Very cool. And you can see that we're using the 5.10 kernel there. So nice. I am liking it. What else do we got? We got Kumo Docs, which I'm not really sure what Kumo is. And then we got Peppermint Extras. So might as well see what that is. So here we have themes, icons, and all that good stuff. Let's look at additional themes real quick. So I'm going to hit install. Might as well just get this stuff. Why not? I'm going to let it check. It's going to check this Codeberg repo to make sure it's talking, and it is. So just hit that, and now it's installing. So that's pretty easy. Wow. Might as well get some Peppermint icons too, some additional. Can never have too many goodies. So I'm going to hit check and install again. Let it do its thing. Authenticate. Then just press the key to close it. And then finally Peppermint Wallpapers. So we might as well get our extra wallpaper as well. And again, check and then install. And then it'll get our wallpaper, and it's grabbing it pretty quick. So we shall have this in a flash too. And it's completed. So press enter to close it, and then close. So now we got all our goodies we can check out when we get to the settings and appearance part of it. Cool. And there you can disable the auto start if you don't want to see the welcome screen anymore. So just FYI. And then here we have our panel items. So there's our console, and we got our Xfce console. And if I go in here and do HTOP, we can take a look at our resource usage, because we did install HTOP during our install there. And so just magnify this a bit, and you can see 470 megs. So that's really good. Nice resource usage there. Impressed with that. And then of course we can do a uname-r and then see our kernel version here, 5.10.0-19-AMD64. So yes, using a stable kernel here, given that we're on Debian stable. And then our whisker menu. And then we have our Thunar file manager here, and themed really nice. I love the red icons there against the dark background. Very cool. And there's our Peppermint Hub. That's where we were a little while ago. And then these are some individualized items here and a little menu list that we can access for easy access, like our package manager and so forth. And then over on this side we got our desktops. You can select between different desktops. And yoink, I got out of the way. But anyways, here we got our network connections and our power settings here. Presentation mode, you can set that if you don't want to be interrupted by your power settings, like going to sleep and all that. And then here's your power manager settings, so you can go in here and tweak and get easy access to your power settings. And that's pretty cool. You can turn off lock screen if that annoys you, like me. And then here we got, I'm going to just authenticate here. So this is our Peppermint updater. So if I just authenticate here, then it runs this command line updater, which really looks nice. I like the red and yellow and white theming in there against the console. Very cool. So now it's getting some updated programs, system updates and all that, which It's probably already updated, but that's a really nice updater, and so it's all good. I'm going to hit Q, press Q, and that'll quit. Oh, really great. And then here's our notification settings. You can turn on Do Not Disturb if you don't want notifications. There's our audio settings, and here we got quick access to our volume control and our audio mixer settings here. So this is easy to get to as well. And then we have our calendar. So there's our Xfce calendar, and then our clock, and it even has the seconds activated by default. That's pretty nice. I kind of like that. Personally, I like the seconds activated. And then over here in our menu, we can take a look and see that our stuff installed. So if we pop over here, there's KeyPass Xfce, and that got in there. And then down here we got our Wine Trick, so Wine installed. So looks like everything installed. That's good to see. And under graphics, there's Inkscape and GIMP. Those are two other things that I checked during the install. So glad to see those there. And Ristretto is our image viewer by default. Cool. And there's Firefox. That was one of our selections. And VLC player we also selected at the beginning. Nice to see that. Here's our LibreOffice suite. Came right in. I'm just going to open up Calc real quick and just take a look at this. And nice. So let's take a look at the version here. So the version is 7.0.4.2, which is quite consistent with the stable version of Debian. So that came right out of the Deb stable repos. And here you can see some of the icons aren't really showing up. They're there, but they're kind of dark colored, so they're blending in with the dark background on the toolbar there. Yeah, the theming's not really perfect there with this particular theme anyway. I think I could probably go into options here, and you can change it a little bit. I think if you go under, I think it might be under personalization maybe. Yeah, so I want to go here. And then pre-installed theme. I think we could probably change this, and then your icons will kind of show up. And now we can see them all. That's a lot better. Cool. And then we can go like gray, and gray might be the best one in this one, because with the gray you can see the fonts up on top on the menu, because here the fonts on your file up on top disappear. You can't really see your file and edit and tools and all that. So yeah, they all kind of get drowned in under these. Let's look at the green. Yeah, the green, you can kind of see the fonts up in your upper menu there, but they disappear in the yellow. You can't see it. So not even with the gray. So that darkest one up there, that gray, is probably the one I would go with, which is this guy. Oops. And so with this, I think this would be your best choice, because now you can see the file, edit, view, insert, format, and all that. At least it's readable there, and you can still see the icons. So that's a good compromise. Otherwise, probably just changing your desktop theme, which we'll do themes a little bit later, but that might be a even better way to go. But this will kind of fix it and make it more readable, I think. So there you go. Yeah, so that kind of fixes things on the back end. So that's LibreOffice. Cool. And then if we go up here to development, nothing there by default. Multimedia, let's see, we left off, I guess, at Office, so that leaves settings and system. And there's that cool retro terminal. So let's see what that looks like. Wow. It does look like an old monitor. That's cool. That is like so 80s. Got that, I forgot what they call that color, but that orangish color there is kind of cool. So you even have the scan lines going down there, or I forgot what they call that, but that's used to be pretty common on a CRT monitor. Cool. So let's just like do a sudo apt update. Even though we're already up to date, I just want to put something on the screen here, and then we'll just authenticate. And wow, you even got that blooming effect there on the font letters. That's really neat, where it kind of glows outside the font characters themselves. So that really looks like an old monitor. That is cool. And I think if I go and right click on the desktop here, yeah, we got like settings, and then there's profile. So amber, that's the color. So if I select something else, there's monochrome green. And wow, that looks like an old green monitor. That's just how I remember them way back in my day. And then we got, check that one out. Yeah, wow, there's a classic green look there. Then we got default. Wow, that kind of reminds me of my neighbor's old Radio Shack, RS something or other. And there's an Apple II. Looks just like it. That is neat. Then we got vintage. Wow, it even has the flicker there, the horizontal sync kind of getting wacky. And there's another profile. Geez, that even has the blurriness in it. And there's another one. I forgot what that was. IBM, I think it said. And then I'm in the way. And that's the last one on the choice. Cool. And let's go into settings. So here in our settings, we can tweak this even more. We can like adjust our brightness. Right here looks like contrast, just like the controls on a real old-fashioned CRT monitor. And then you can set your margin, so you can kind of slide that off away from the edge if you want a little. And then opacity, by default, there's a little bit of a less opaque, and you can bring the opacity down to 0 or have it all the way up here for a solid, so you can't see the desktop behind it. But by default, it was at 70%. So you can kind of see a little bit of the desktop behind the terminal there. And then here we got our terminal settings. So our rasterization, blinking cursor, so you can let the cursor blink. That's cool. And then here's our color settings. So chroma color and all that, you can tweak that around and just make it look exactly like your old monitor. And then here's our effects. This is where we're getting this stuff like the boom around your fonts there. And then it looks like we got a burn-in effect there. And I guess that's kind of like simulates when letters would burn in. And there's a static noise. So turning that on and off, that kind of gets rid of the static. That's the jitter setting. So that's what kind of causes that little jitter there. Glow line, that's that thing that was moving up and down. So if that drives you nuts, you can turn it off right there. And then screen curvature, you can turn this on and slide those sliders and it'll curve your screen. And then, so if we do this, it's like curving it, so it looks just like a curved CRT on an old-fashioned monitor. That's really cool. And then ambient light, you can kind of simulate like the light shining on your monitor from within your room. So that is cool. That is just like so authentic. And then that's the flickering. If the flickering kind of drives you nuts, you can turn that off there, but that's kind of what those old monitors had. They had that kind of a 60 hertz flickering. You can make your horizontal sync off a little, so like some old monitors where their horizontal output was starting to go south, then you would kind of get this kind of effect. Maybe a bad cap in there was starting to affect it. And then you got your RGB shift, so this kind of simulates the convergence on your CRT kind of getting out of whack. And so that's kind of cool. You can kind of shift that. That is really authentic. Wow. What a masterful job by the programmers to come up with a terminal like this. This is just awesome. Double thumbs up, 5 stars for this app. Wow. And then our effects frames per second, bloom quality and all that can be adjusted there. These are defaults here for your rasterization, so you can have scan lines in there, default. So that kind of looks like, that really looks like a valid old CRT monitor with those scan lines. I like that. I think I would probably keep the scan lines personally. That is cool. Wow. I feel like I just flashed back to the 80s. And then here's all kinds of templates you can go in and choose from. IBM, all kinds of different systems. That is really great. So I am loving that. That is awesome. A classic terminal. I'm going to have to put that on mine. Really great. So that was an unexpected surprise. Really cool. And then here's our Gparted app that we installed, and again, I would not recommend using that if you don't know anything about partitioning and formatting your hard drive, because you could get yourself in a world of hurt with that. But if you do know your way around it, of course, Gparted is the de facto standard that most of us use. And then here's our software center. So this should be Gnome software, I believe, and it is. So that's just kind of downloading our meta information. There's all our graphics. Nice. And starts off with the editor's picks here. And then if you want to do a search, just hit the little icon and we'll type in Blender and we'll click on that guy. And I was thinking we'd have some options for the Snap Store and Flatpak, because I think I selected those packages at install, but I'm only seeing the Debian Bullseye repo there, so doesn't look like those actually integrated into the Gnome software, but not a big deal. Just take a look at the software repos. Yeah, those are the officially supported repos and the test repo options, but yeah, oh well, so it goes. Kind of closed it by mistake there, but back in here, these are your different categories. So you got your graphics and communications. Here we can look at our installed apps. So these are everything that's installed right now. You can see our Gnome, KeyPass, LibreOffice, VLC, Wine. So wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. Little Ozzy there, quote. And then we got our system. So there's our Synaptic. So let's take a look at Synaptic. Synaptic is another package manager, and this is basically a GUI front end for the console. So if this is really fast because it doesn't have all the graphics and all that pictures loaded in. Here's all our different categories. Amateur radio, which is one of my favorites. Communication. Got electronics, email, so you can choose from all these different categories and browse them, or you can just simply hit search and type something you want, like Blender, and then hit search, and then it should find Blender. And since I clicked on it again, I might as well just get it. So it's showing here that version 2.83 is available, and if I click Blender and then right click on it, then I can go down here and I can look at the description, and then I can right click on it, mark for installation, hit mark, and then we're good to go. Then all I have to do is go up here and hit apply, and then that'll actually install it once we hit apply. And then these are all other options that you could add in too, so you got all these little extras there. But anyways, I'm going to click apply and then hit apply again, and then it'll download all the package files, and just like that we'll have Blender. So it's unpacking all the goodies, and there we go. Changes applied, so I'm going to hit close, and now it should refresh, and there we go. Now you can see that Blender and the Blender data are both checked and installed. And again, here's the description down here, so it gives you a full description and all that. So fantastic. I'm going to close this, and let's jump into our menu and make sure that it showed up. So under graphics, there it is, Blender. So if I hit that, it ought to just launch right up and just be working, because Synaptic is old reliable. And there we go, there's our splash screen, and those are our default settings for our first time launch, and I'm good with all that, so I'm hitting next. And then here you can choose what type of environment you want to do. You got video editing, sculpting, 2D animation, general, which is 3D animation. And typically if you're going to be 3D sculpting, this would be the way to go here. So there you are. And then you can just slide that around if you want. So Blender, nice. And then what else can we look at? Oh yes, we got to go over here into our menu and slide up the system and take a look at our settings. So we'll go in here and let's take a look at our appearance settings and check out all that stuff that we downloaded earlier. So here we got all our different themes here under style. We got arc, blue and green and gray. Green looks cool. So if we hit that, then our accents become green. And then we have like gray to choose from. and orange dark. I'm choosing the dark because I'm in a dark theme right now, so you should choose the dark icons for those. And then darker, that kind of gives you a combination of light and dark stuff. But typically I like staying with the dark stuff, like there's Arc Sand, and then here's our Peppermint series. So those are the ones that we downloaded, I think, in the beginning from the welcome screen. And there's brown, there's green for the dark theme, and then we got orange, purple, red, and I think that's like kind of like the default, I would think. And then we got teal, and then our icons over here. So by default we're using Papyrus, and that's a really nice choice for default. But then we got all our Peppermint icons here, and these are the ones I think we downloaded from the welcome screen. There's Peppermix, wow, that looks pretty wild. And then there's our green variation, beautiful shade of green. And then our Peppermix pink, Peppermix red, and then we got Ubuntu, which kind of looks like our humanity icon. Actually, I think it's the same thing. Let's see. And then we got Numix, and there's the humanity, so if I click that, yeah, same one. And then our Numix, like circle and circle, that's a better choice. Nice color though. And then Gnome, and then ePapyrus, which is, I think, essentially the same. And then our elementary Xfce dark, and then just elementary Xfce and dark. So yes, and there is a difference actually over in the left-hand pane is where you mostly see the difference between dark and light theme there. So yes, nice. That kind of covers our icons and themes. That's really super. And then these are our panel settings. So if we pop in here, we can go up here, and these are all the different items in our panel. So these all correspond to what you see down in your bottom panel. And let's add something. I just hit the add button. I'm going to scroll down, and let's put in our show desktop. That's always really handy. So I'm going to hit that and add it. And now you can see that it showed up right down in the very lower left corner right here. So when I click that, it minimizes everything so you can see your desktop easily. And clicking it again restores everything. So nice. And so then we have our display here. And under display, we can actually, first let's unlock our panel. And that allows us to grab it there on the handle on the end, and we slid it up to the top. We can also select desk bar from our mode, and it'll instantly put it over on the left-hand side. And then if we select vertical, it kind of switches your icons around so it looks like it did when it was on the bottom, except it's sideways. And then vertical, put it back there, and then we'll just slide it back down to the bottom because that's where it was. So here we can also increase the length. If we uncheck that, we can decrease it and make it shorter. So it kind of looks like a panel. And if we kind of wanted it that way for some reason, then I could just grab the handle here and just slide it towards the middle and just kind of make it look more like a panel. Except I'd probably like take out a bunch of those items and just kind of make it look like a more of a panel. But personally, I just install Plank. But there you go. But I mean, that is a handy setting because you might want to add a secondary one up on top or on the side or something. So very nice. Then we got our window manager tweaks, always handy. You can go in here into the compositor and kind of trick it out a little bit here. One thing I like to do in here is I like to go over and adjust the opacity of windows during moves. So if I back that off a bit, now you can see it goes transparent when I slide it around. And even your inactive windows, we could make that a little transparent, being inactive. So I could just back this off a bit, and then you can see the background coming through on the inactive window off to the right there, and you can make it really transparent if you want. So that's kind of a nice effect too. And now if I click on it and bring it into focus, then it's solid again, and now this one is inactive. So that's a nice effect for inactive. I might even keep it that way. And then what else can we look at? These are all pretty much they are all your standard Xfce things that we've looked at many a time, but keyboard is one of my standard things. I like to make sure that the restore numlock is activated, which it is by default. I like it. I'm glad to see that. And then here we got our removable drives, session and startup. These are like some of your startup settings. So if you kind of know your way around configuring your startup, this is a lot of easy access here where you can turn things on and off in your startup when you boot in. Nice to have. And then back into our setting window, I think we might have covered all of this stuff here. So that wraps it up for settings. Excellent. We'll slide that over here. And then we'll take a look at some of our Peppermint stuff again. The Peppermint Hub was where we were near the beginning of the video, and so now it's time to take a closer look. So here's our suggested stuff here. If I go ahead and authenticate, this will bring up our suggested apps, and this is kind of where we were before, so I guess that's kind of redundant, but nice to have. Kumo, I don't really have a clue what that is, but I'm going to click on it. Maybe we can get a clue. So looks like it's some kind of, maybe something to do with web apps, maybe managing web apps, but yeah, I'm not really sure. But I think for somebody it would be cool. I'm just going to type Blender in there for the heck of it. But it looks like you can like do search for different apps and put them in there, but I think they might be related to apps that are located on specific websites. Not really sure, but yeah. I know for the right person, that would be cool. And then here we have our app image hub. So this will open up, and this is a web app actually, since we're on the subject. And this opens us up right over to the app hub, app image hub website. And so here you can get access to all kinds of app images that are available for some of your favorite apps and maybe some of your least favorite apps. But app images are really cool. They're really nice. They're kind of like flat packs and snaps wherein they're all self-contained, but app images are really just kind of all self-contained into one image. So it's kind of cool. I always liked app images. I think they're really double nice, and in some cases I like them better than the flat packs and snaps. But like if we go to video here and then maybe sort it by ranking, we'll probably see something like OBS, and there it is, OBS Studio. So here we could click on that and get an app image of OBS if we wanted to, or any of these other cool things here to get. So that's nice to have, especially on a Debian-based system. Then we have our Snap Store here. So we could go in here, and I think this will install the Snap Store for us, but it looks like it's got to install Snapd first. So the Snap daemon isn't actually installed. So I'm going to let that do its thing, and then the Snap Store ought to finally be working. And then with the Snap Store, that gives us access to a lot of the newer apps. Like, for example, I went in and downloaded Blender. It was like 2.83, but with the Snap Store, we could actually get the newest, latest, and greatest version of Blender, which I can't remember the exact version, 3 dot something, 1 maybe, 2, but anyway, here in OBS Studio, we can go in here and we can get a hold of version 27.13, so that's way more up to date. It's not 28, but it is pretty recent for a Debian. And then I can go up here and choose from another one, which is 27.2.3. So that would be an even more updated version of OBS Studio. And if you're having problems in 28, maybe you have a special plugin or something that doesn't work with it yet, then this is a great way to go back to version 27 and be able to use it. So that's something to consider too. And then here's our Pep Scope. Kind of cool. So this is kind of like a log of recent updates and so forth. And so this is our update history here. And you can kind of see when everything was updated and then what it was that was updated in the comments. I like the comments too. And then this is our update history for our Peppermint tools. And again, the same thing. It's kind of a log file that's available that you can kind of peruse, and we can just kind of expand these out. And actually, to me, the comments would be the most interesting, so we can go in here and it shows like we updated the layout for a better fit, for most resolutions and stop the reopening of welcome and all that. So nice. Yes. And then we got X Daily. Not really sure what that is, but I think that might be like a daily check for updates and stuff. Yeah, it looks like it's kind of like a daily maintenance thing. It looks like it's updating the app repositories here. Nice. And then checking for updates. And there's probably nothing available since we've already done updates. But it will do, and it's showing that everything's up to date, so that's good. Now it's cleaning cache, and even has capability to remove stuff for Nala. Nice. And then caching icons, so that's handy. Glad to see that too. That's especially handy in Xfce, so your icon cache stays up to date. Very nice. So X Daily, that I think must be a customized utility as well with Peppermint. So wonderful. And then here's another disk utility. This one looks a lot safer than Gparted for most users. So in here, it looks like it's kind of equivalent to the Windows utility that you can get to in Windows fairly easily. So I like that. That is looking good. So a very friendly disk utility available there. Nice. Really, overall, this Peppermint Hub is really a nice little thing to be able to access. I really like that. Big plus there. And then here we have our documents folder. This is our Thunar viewer, and I just right-clicked and added that to favorites, so you can star that and put it in your favorites. And so now you have that big star there, and it shows that it's there. And then another thing you can do is like you can take your folders and, for example, I could remove that from favorites and kind of put it back where it was, so now it's second in line, and I can pin it. Now it'll be pinned to the front right there. So now it moved back over again. Or I can unpin it and move it over as a bookmark. So I can slide it over here in the left-hand pane, and right up there under bookmarks, I can let go of it. And now under bookmarks, we have documents. And then I can do the same with downloads. And of course, the original folder stays where it is. So it's leaving references over there in the left-hand side. Really nice. So now you have quick access to downloads, documents, videos, and anything else you want to drag down there. So that's a nice way to get easy access to some of your folders that you access a lot, but they might not be easy to get to because they might be buried a few levels deep. And then here we have our different view settings. List view, there's compact view. That's all good. List view is my favorite personally, and I see that the date modified format is just the way I like it. And again, the default is the icon view, so I'll just kind of stick it back there for default. And let's go and right click on our desktop and go into desktop settings. Might as well take a look at our wallpaper. A lot populating because we did download a lot of extra wallpapers at the beginning there, and there's a nice one. I like that. It's got the little Peppermint Gnome guy there. And then we got some nice branded Peppermint wallpaper. Beautiful. And that was our default, I think, which is also gorgeous actually. And then another nature scene with our little gnome dude, and that's kind of a nice one. That's a beautiful contrast. I like the peppermint red there. Beautiful logo and branding done there. And that looks kind of nice too. I actually like that with a dark theme. And then here we have another peppermint branded with the little dude up there, the wizard gnome. I guess he's a gnome, I don't know. But beautiful backgrounds, and ooh, that looks really nice. That could be a keeper. Wow, that kind of looks like the space around my home planet, but not exactly like my home planet because it's not peppermint flavored. Cool. So I am liking that. So I might actually go with that wallpaper, but here's some more branded peppermint wallpaper, which is really nice. And so that's kind of branded as the PC Net Spec edition. Jumping back in, there's another variation where you kind of got a gray variation there, and that I kind of like a little better, I think. But I think I'm going to stick with this one. This one just looks really cool. And then I'm going to pop over to icons, and here's default icons that you can show on your desktop. So I could go here and select home, and then it shows up here on our desktop in the upper left corner. Then we got our trash, so I can turn that on and select that as well. We can show removable devices, except I don't have any plugged in. And then if you want access to your file system, you can go here, and you got to be root to actually do anything in there, but here you can see all your files in your root. So uncheck that because there's no devices. So those are the two that I would normally go with. And then here we can change our icon size. We can beef that up to 58 or higher, make them bigger, or we can make it smaller, like 38. And now they're quite tiny. And then I forgot what the default was, like 45 or maybe it was 48. I can't remember. Let's try, actually 48's not a choice on there, so when you click it anyway. But 47's close enough. Nice. Then you got other options like single click to select and use custom font size and stuff. Typically I don't change those, but there you go. So man, I gotta tell you, I think I covered everything here. And wow, Peppermint has just really gotten great. I remember when I reviewed this, I think closer to the beginning of the year when they first kind of went over to Xfce, and I remember getting a few comments that some people didn't like the changeover to Peppermint, but I gotta tell you, I am really liking the way this distro's looking. It just feels so smooth and so stable. The theming is really nice. It wasn't actually perfect in LibreOffice. However, everywhere else it just looks great. And of course, LibreOffice, that's an easy tweak. We just did that tweak there and it actually looked pretty decent. But I mean, if I went with just simply went with a different theme like an arc darker or some other theme, I think that probably would have even fixed the LibreOffice. But a minor thing, I think the theming and the color scheming and everything, I just love the Peppermint kind of look. The black and red or the white and red, depending on whether you're using light and dark theme or dark theme. However, I like the dark theme with the red. I think it looks great. I think their branded wallpaper is just excellent. This is just a first-class distro all the way around. I really can't think of anything that I wouldn't like. This is something I would certainly set up on another computer or a laptop. Absolutely. Even though I typically run Arch as my daily driver because I like having access to the AUR and a gazillion different softwares, but there's a lot of situations where I don't need something like Arch. On a laptop or installing it for a friend or a neighbor, a brother, a spouse, this can be a really solid, fantastic choice. Of course, it's based on Debian stable, so you're not likely to be having any kind of issues with it when you get an update, contrary to something like Arch, which you could, even though it's actually pretty rare. But I think something like Xfce Debian based on Peppermint OS, you really can't go wrong. I just don't really see any cons. I tried to think of one, and the LibreOffice theme thing on the toolbar was the best I could do. So that says something for the distro. This is really nice, and I like the fact that I can choose some apps during install right at the beginning. Right up front I can select things like GIMP and Inkscape, OBS Studio, my choice of browser, and whether to have LibreOffice on there or not have it. A lot of choices, and I think that is a huge plus too that is really worth noting, is the fact that you can make all those choices right during install before you even get it on your computer. And then the fact that they give you easy access in their welcome screen to add some more recommended apps in case you might have missed something during install or decided you just wanted to wait. So really nice. And then you got the customized Peppermint apps that give you easy access to a lot of handy utilities. So just one plus after another. What a fantastic distro that this Peppermint is. I'm really impressed with it. So I gotta say, this is an absolutely double thumbs up distro. And I really enjoyed doing a review on this. This was just a lot of fun. What a pleasure to work with this. So Peppermint OS, good job. That was great. And hopefully I covered everything in this review, and hopefully it was helpful too. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.